Set 7.5 has been out for a while now, and to spice things up, we will be seeing a ton of small reworks as well as some major balance changes in this patch. In this video, I'll run through the patch, then tell you how this will affect the meta, and then finish up with a prediction tier list so you know what to play tomorrow. Starting off with traits, Astral is getting a nerf to its early game. You will still get the same amount of gold, but you will get less champions from the orb. This means that you will be less likely to naturally 2 and 3 star all your Astral champions. Dragonmancer gets buffed at 2, 4, and 6. The buffs to 2 and 4 are pretty big, while the buffs to 6 is small. This makes Tekken and Dragonmancer a lot more interesting, especially if you're running a Yasuo carry in the late game or a Volibear carry in the mid game. There are also some quality of life changes to this trait, which is nice to see. Scalescorn is getting removed. Now you can play them with dragons and have the trait active. This opens up more creativity within Scalescorn comps, which is nice to see. I am interested to see if you want to run dragons now in the Olaf reroll comp. The Electric Mirage variant gets a buff. This makes the Leona reroll comp better, which is nice to see, but I still don't think you should play Standard Cavalier Deja when this is the trait. The Dragon trait gets buffed. Now 5 Dragon will give you healing per second. This is better than the previous attack speed you got, since all the dragons benefit from this, while the attack speed didn't really benefit anyone besides Siphon and Xiaoyu. 6 Dragon is a new chase trait now, and your dragons will ascend and become very powerful if you hit it. They haven't spoiled what it will do yet, but it is supposed to be a win condition. Jade gets buffed. Now you get more attack speed at 5 and 7. This is a nice change as we haven't seen Jade being played that much, and this might just push it into play. Mage gets a standard nerf at 5 and 7. They have been some of the stronger comps in the meta, so it's nice to see. Ragewing 6 gets a nerf yet again. This might open up some different Ragewing Xayah paths, where you only play 4 Ragewing, or you might even drop down to only playing 2. Swiftshot 5 gets a buff, which is also nice to see. There are no buffs or nerfs to 1 cost, so let's go straight into 2 costs. Gnar gets buffed. He gets higher attack speed, and also gets more tankiness after he transforms. I like this change as I've never seen Gnar do anything scary. He's pretty much just been a synergy bot so far in both sets. Zyra gets nerfed. Now she has lower base attack speed and will deal a lot less damage with her spell. Additionally, she will pause to finish her spell before she will continue to auto attack, which is another nerf to the Ginzu Zyra build. Overall, I'm happy about these nerfs as Zyra is a pretty annoying champion to play against, but I also feel like they went too far, and we might not even see people play Zyra at all anymore unless she is a synergy bot. Moving on to 3 costs, Nunu gets nerfed. Now he will deal bonus magic damage instead of true damage when the enemy has lower HP than him. It's a huge nerf to the Dragonmancer Nunu comp, so large that I would probably not even play it anymore. This means that if you are looking to 3-star Nunu in a Deja comp, you definitely need Ionic Spark on him so that he can one-shot the targets through magic damage. Rakan gets a nerf. Now he will need 1 more auto attack to repeat cast, a fine nerf as he was a really strong champion last patch. Seraphine gets a pretty big nerf. Now she will need more mana for repeat casts, her shield lasts for a shorter period of time, and she will deal less damage at 3-star. Overall some pretty big nerfs, and it hits the Seraphine reroll comp quite hard, especially when Rakan and Zyra also caught big nerfs. Zeri gets a big buff. Now she has a lower mana pool, and she will also deal more damage at 1 and 2-star. This might be enough to make Zeri carry viable, which I'm excited to try. Lee Sin gets a bug fix that ends up buffing him. Now he will deal more damage consistently to the backline. Because of this, he gets a small nerf to compensate. Volibear gets another buff across the board. Hopefully, this is enough to make reroll Shimmer Scale with Volibear carry viable. Zippy gets a small buff at 3-star, which is nice to see for the Rat reroll comp. Moving on to 4 costs, Hecarim gets a buff and a nerf. Now it will take him longer to do his first cast, but he will be more likely to do his second cast now. In a way, this is more of a nerf to 1-star Hecarim and a buff to 2-star Hecarim, since a 2-star Hecarim will be more likely to stay alive long enough to cast twice. Jace gets reworked. Now he will not CC units with a spell anymore, and he is a lot more squishy before he has transformed. Once he has transformed, he will be about as tanky as before, and he will deal more damage with a spell now. This means that Jace carry might become an option, and he will be less utility focused. Nyla can properly stack her stolen shields now, but they will only last for 4 seconds. This means that she will be a lot stronger against comps with a lot of shields, as she will be practically invulnerable for 4 seconds a lot of the time. Xiaoyu gets buffed at 2-star. Now he will deal more damage with a spell, which is nice to see. Siphon gets a much needed buff. Now he will ignore more armor with the spell, and he will also cast more often, which is nice to see. Siphon was decent on the last patch, but Zyra is getting hard nerfs, so the Whispers comp definitely needs this. Swain gets a buff to his spell. Now it deals more damage. He has been absent from the meta so far, so hopefully this is enough to make him appear more often. Xayah gets a small nerf to her spell at 1-star. You stabilized a little too hard after this, so it's nice to see this nerf. Moving on to 5 costs, Aoshin gets a small nerf at 2-star and a giant buff at 3-star. Asol gets buffed at 1 and 2-star. These two changes are nice to see, as now you can consider going for either Asol or Aoshin carry in the endgame, instead of just always going with Aoshin. Moving on to items, Radiant Stoneplate gets a buff, which is nice to see. Protector's Wow gets a nerf. This item has been so good ever since its release, so it's nice to see this being brought down a little bit. 10% HP is still a lot, especially on bruisers and 3-star units. Moving on to Augments, Base Camp gets a small nerf. This is fine as it made the Olaf comp really strong with this augment. Battle Mage gets a decent buff. A fine change is that I rarely see people take this augment, but I still don't think you want this unless you're playing AP carries on the frontline like Shyvana, Lilia, Diana, and so on. Better Together now grants a locket. This is fine as Protector's Wow was very strong. I like that you get a locket now, as you'd much rather just spam Protector's Wows and never build locket with the augment before. Birthday Present now gives 1 gold per level up. This will help your econ in the early game, allowing you to hit level 6 faster. This probably is not enough to make this augment good, but definitely a step in the right direction. Celestial Blessing gets a nerf to the shield. It's a fine change as the augment has been pretty strong, and the shield really makes this augment shine if you have a carry dealing a large amount of damage. It will still be a useful augment to grab if you need a little more healing on your carry though. Future Sight gets moved to silver tier. I like this change as it felt a bit weak for a gold augment, although it is very powerful in the right hands. I will definitely take this augment more often now, as you essentially get a better item grab bag, since Zephyr is always useful in any team. Pandora's Bench gets moved to silver tier as well. A nice change as this augment was only worth taking in rare situations. It might even be worth taking now just to 2-star your 4 and 5 cost units quicker. Portable Forge gets a small nerf to the Blitzhook item. The lower elo you are, the higher value this item is, as people don't scout too much, so I'm fine with this nerf. Tiamat gets a buff. I think this augment is weak because warriors are weak, so I don't think this needed a buff, rather that warriors need a buff. Earth's Grab Bag 1 and Weak Spot are getting removed from the game, although Weak Spot might return after a rework. Binary Airdrop gets a tiny buff in certain situations. Dragonmancer Conference can only appear on 2-1, which is nice to see. Scoped Weapons 1 gets a small buff. The strength of this augment is directly tied to how good melee carries are, so this won't do too much in isolation, but it's still nice to see. There are also some bug fixes. One worth mentioning is that Siphon Soul will now properly work, so consider taking this now if you're playing that comp. Pause the video if you want to read through the rest of them. In order to understand what the new meta will look like, we need to look at the previous meta from patch 12.18. As we can see, this meta was dominated by AP comps like Endgame Dragons, Lagoon, and Mages. Xayah was the only AD comp you could consistently play, and Olaf was a solid option in some situations. You could also play Deja and other comps like Dragonmancer in some situations, but they definitely got outperformed by the top comps. This meta was somewhat slower paced, as a lot of the top comps really wanted to roll at level 8, like Xayah, Dragons, and Lagoon. Additionally, Mage Namsi and Olaf wanted to slow roll at level 7, which also slowed down the lobby. With more buffs to Siphon and Xiaoyu, we might see a bit of a faster meta, as those comps can roll at level 7, but they also want to fast 8 if possible. Additionally, comps like Seraphine Reroll and Zyra Whispers are getting gutted, and will most likely not see play next patch. This will also slow down the meta a bit. There weren't any major buffs to any other comps, although we might see Dragonmancers, Guild Reroll, or Gnar Reroll start to see play. With that said, let's take a look at my prediction tier list. In S tier, we have Endgame Dragons. This comp will continue to be the strongest in the game. The only thing that might change is that you play Asol over Aoshin, but most likely you will play whichever one you have the best items for. Lagoon Sohm will continue to be a strong comp, as the only nerf it saw was a small nerf to 5 and 7 Mage. Ragewing Xayah is getting hit pretty hard, with a nerf to Rakan, Hecarim, and Xayah. Additionally, the Jace rework might result in this comp becoming weaker too. The comp might even be pushed down to B tier, but a new version could appear where it is stronger. Scalescore and Olaf will continue to be a strong comp, and it might even have a new version now that we can play dragons within the comp. Reroll Namsi will likely stick around even though it got a small nerf to the mage trait. Jade Xiaoyu saw some play in the Korea server last patch, and with these buffs we might see more of it played here. 6 Whispers will be weaker since Zyra got some insanely large nerfs, and the Siphon buffs are not strong enough to compensate in my opinion. We might play 4 Whispers and other stuff now if you are running Siphon carry though, so we'll have to see. Rat Reroll didn't really get any buffs besides the 3-star Zippy buff, so it'll remain in B tier. Mirage Deja will likely stick around as a comp you can play when the trait is good. You also have the option of playing it with guilds now instead too. Thank you so much for watching. If you learned something, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. If you want cheat sheets for any of my comp guides, they are available for YouTube members and patrons, and links to those are down in the description. And if you want to get better at TFT, join the Discord. We got over 9,000 other players there who are hungry to climb. And if you want to get coached by me, the information is over on the Discord server as well. So take care and see you in the next video.